This course has a lot of video tutorials showing you how to get the most out of Web Content Studio. However, I know most people are going to want to dive straight in and get started quickly. So this video is going to take you over a very quick, brief introduction to the interface and how to use it. And the first thing you should notice is you've got 4 tabs at the top: Home, Researcher, Keywords, and Quick Start. One of the most frequent emails I get is from people saying there is no "what you see is what you get" editor tab. And when you first start Web Content Studio, there isn't. There won't be an editor tab until you've created or opened an article for editing, because there's no need to have the editor if you haven't got an article to edit. So that's why you've got 4 tabs. The Quick Start tab basically takes you through the process, and you can see here: number 1, create the project; number 2, go to the keyword tab and get the keywords; number 3, open the researcher and find the relevant information, that's the researcher tab; 4, write the article in the "what you see is what you get" editor; 5, check the article theme reports that are available; and number 6, export the final article and upload it to the website. And so this course is designed to cover those things in that order. I've also got down here a little bit of help, because quite often you might have an article that wasn't written by you, maybe a ghostwriter or a PLR article, and you want to rewrite it so that it is better optimized for the search engines and a better quality article overall. And there's some instructions down there for doing that. If you want to, you can hide that tab. And you can see now we've only got the 3 tabs. The quick tab has gone. But don't worry, if you want to get it back in the options, there is a Show Quick Start tab, and that brings it back again. So let's have a quick look what happens when you try to open or create a new article. This is the Article Manager, and what you can see here is a list of projects. A project is like a folder that can contain different articles. So for example, I've got an Astrology Planets project here, and inside there I've got a number of different articles. As you use the software more and more, the number of projects is going to increase, and you might find it more difficult to find things. So project order can be used to help find things. The default project order is in the order they were entered. So this one at the very top, this project at the top, is the oldest project I have, and the one at the bottom is the newest project that I have. But you can have them alphabetical if you want, and now I've got my projects ordered alphabetically. Or I can have it recent projects first, so I know that the ones I'm actually working on are at the top of the project list, and all I need to do to open an article is to double click it. And you can see now the article has opened in the editor, and you see the editor tab is now present, as well as a tab called Notes. To go back to the screen I was just on, if I want to work on something different, I can just click on the Open Article, and I can select one from the list. Alternatively, I could create a new project or create a new article in the existing project. So let's have a look. I've got a teaching project here. If I wanted to create a new article in the teaching project, I click on Articles and say New Article in Selected Project, and then I'd get something here. This is my new article. That's the title of the article. Click on Return, and then I can double click it to open it in the editor, and I'm away editing. Similarly, you can create a new project just by clicking on New Project, give it a title, and if you've got recent projects selected here, then that one will appear at the top and you can add articles to it. The other thing you can do, if I go back to alphabetical, there's an option here to archive projects. If you finish with a project and you don't really want to use it, or you don't want it taking up the space in here, let's say my Astrology Aspects project, I can click on the Archive Project button and actually mark it as archived. That one is already marked as archived. Let me mark that one as archived as well. So I've got these 3 projects marked as archived. You can see the little check down there. If it's not archived, it's not checked. And then I can just click on the Hide Archive button, and then those ones will disappear. So it helps to clean up this project list. And if you click, if this is actually selected as Hide Archived and you change one of these to archive, let's say this particular project, click on Check, and then click on the little tick to save, you'll watch that the project disappears from the list because this is already checked. Okay, let's just open an article and we'll have a look at the software. This was actually a version 1 Web Content Studio article, so let me just do a quick edit. If you have upgraded from version 1 to version 2 and you want to know what I've just done, have a look at the upgrading from version 1 to version 2 tutorial, and that will explain it all. So I've got my article here in the editor. On the right hand side you can see a bar which gives me theme words and theme phrases. These theme words and phrases you can actually manually edit by using the add edit keywords, and you can edit them one per line or get them comma separated if you want to. Same goes for theme phrases. The only difference between a theme word and a theme phrase is a theme word has one word, a theme phrase has more than one word. Okay, these weren't actually entered manually, they were entered on the keywords tab where I actually used the keyword spider to find them. The other thing you've got available to you here are some reports. This one here called Easter egg you won't have, that is only in my development version, but you will have these other ones: check keywords, keyword map, theme report, and check theme words against top 10. You've also got a checkbox called exact match, and we'll look at these options when we look at the reports. On the editor screen you've also got a source tab where you can get access to the source code if you want to copy and paste that HTML into a web page, and you've also got the plain text if you want the plain text. The buttons across the top should be fairly self-explanatory, at least the editing ones. You've got the options here to set text as various headers or as normal. Normal will just be normal paragraph text. You can also change the font, although I would advise you not to unless you really want to do something and you know what you're doing, because if you change the font, let's just have a look and see what happens. Let me just select some code here and say we'll change this first paragraph, let's say, first couple of paragraphs to, let's say, this font. Right, look what happens on the source code. We've all of a sudden got all of this font CSS style information, and that will clutter up your page. So I recommend you actually don't use fancy text unless it's some code and you want to just highlight it separately and you know that it's going to have the font CSS in line with your HTML and you're happy with that, then fine. Otherwise I would really ignore this and ignore the font size. If you're using WordPress, the title sizes and the font sizes and the font itself are going to be controlled by WordPress anyway, so don't worry about changing those. I've included them just to give you the flexibility. And you've also of course got, let me just highlight some text. Let's say, okay, using Diet and Mentos, you've got the option here for background color and text color. So you can change the text color as well, and you can also change the background if you want to highlight a little bit of the content. In the toolbar, you've also got the option to add a URL, add images, and these other buttons we'll look at when we come to see how to use the software. I want to just skip over them for the moment. On the keywords tab, this is the spider. This is where you can get Web Content Studio to go and find a list of the most relevant theme words or phrases for the article you're trying to write. Again, we are going to look at this in detail later in the course, so we're not going to have a look at it right now. The other thing you've got is the researcher, and on the researcher tab we've got various useful URLs that we might want to go to. If you click on one, these will actually open up in your own default web browser. And what you can do when it's opened in your default web browser is you can actually copy text, and this grabber feature basically will copy anything into this area, which is the scratch pad, that you highlight in another Windows application and copy. But we'll look at that later, and then you can also process that information as well. But this is the scratch pad, and that was what this button actually does. It actually opens a scratchpad panel. So if you've made notes during your research, you can then have them open on the screen while you're doing your article. But again, we'll come back to that. The only other tab here is notes, and that is just if you want to keep notes on various topics. But again, we'll have a brief look at that later in the course. We don't need to look at it now. So that's a brief overview. If you want to start working, open or create a new article, double click on it to open it in the editor, and then you can edit away. Once you've finished editing, you'll use these reports, which you can have a play around with and see whether your article is well themed, see if it's too well themed and in fact looks a bit spammy, and then make changes. So in the next video, we're going to have a look at the options screen, which is the final thing we need to look at before we start looking at these things in depth.